The following broadcast was produced by the Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco as part of our Lighthouse Learning Library.
So I said we were going to talk about some real-world considerations now. And one of the real blue chips, one of the stars of the California economy is Hewlett-Packard. Started in that garage, the legendary, the kind of archetype of entrepreneurial stuff. We've been talking about all this entrepreneurial stuff. They invented it. And growing from that start, Hewlett-Packard, in a zillion things, innovative, a special culture that maybe Elcio will talk about, the HP way. It's a special way of working and special way of approaching the workplace. Hewlett-Packard has grown to a size and dimension that I just want to underscore here. The state of California, think of everybody who works for the state, every university professor, all the Lawrence Hall of Science, Lawrence Berkeley Labs, every CHP, DMV, tax, all those people, 220,000 employees in offices all around the state of California. Hewlett-Packard, globally, 310,000 employees, half again as many as all state of California employees. It's that big and that diverse. And they have to have some folks in charge of recruiting for that workforce. And the workforce and the needs are changing all the time. So we're privileged to have the Vice President of Global Recruiting for HP, Elcio Barcelos, to come and speak to us about what's it like when you're looking for good people, and what is that culture, and how can anyone, blind or sighted, hope to succeed in their job, career, and elsewhere within their working life. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Elcio Barcelos to speak to us about employment and global recruiting. Elcio.
Thank you very much.
All right.
This is like a holiday for me, being able to get out of the office and have this beautiful drive up here. And when I pulled off into the camp, I was really just completely blown away by how beautiful and serene the experience is. But then I looked at your agenda, and and I said, Brian, wow, there's no camp here. There's a lot of work here. It's a lot. You've been very busy. So I was asked to join you today, and I'm very passionate about what we'll be talking about today. And a few minutes ago, Brian said, no need to sugarcoat it. Tell it how it is, and that's how I work as well. I'll just tell you how it is. This is what we're looking for. This is how we work. This is how the company operates. And there's no question off the table. So as we go through the process, if you have questions, speak up. We'll make sure to have enough time towards the end to be able to ask questions, make this as interactive as possible. Keep in mind it is a holiday for me, so we'll have some fun with that. Elcio Barcelos, that's my name. I've been with Hewlett-Packard now for about 2 years and a few months. Prior to HP, I managed employment for Wells Fargo for about 5 years or so, and then spent quite a few other years at Bank of America. So went from financial services to the technology industry right as the financial crisis happened. And I was very happy to transition to technology, only to now experience the technology crisis. But that's okay. It's how life evolves. I believe when you change industries, as I did from financial services to technology, that it's really not that difficult to change industries altogether, because ultimately in my business, I'm in the people business. So it's about recruiting the talent, finding the talent that an organization needs, and delivering against that need, right? It doesn't matter if it's technology, if it's banking, if it's retail, it just doesn't really matter. It's ultimately, what does the employer need? And we do our very best to build a team and the infrastructure to deliver against those needs. Throughout the years, became very passionate about recruiting because I saw the impact that recruiting had on the bottom line of the business. And it started to me, prior to Bank of America, I worked for an optical company. and a retailer, an optical retailer, major national chain, and started managing stores and working the retail floor and working with doctors. And through that, I was able to meet a lot of individuals that were visually impaired or were in the field, and it was just an interesting experience for me as a young professional, kind of evolving and getting to that point. But in retail, which that's the industry, I'd like to say, even though I was in vision care, I'd like to say that I was more in retail per se. It's really about finding the very best talent to bring the right patient in or bring the right level of customers into your store to make them profitable. And that's where I got my recruiting bug, where I knew that if I found the right doctor, that doctor would create the right patient flow into the practice, create the right volume for us, create the right level of revenue that we needed as a store, and then that evolved into a bigger practice, right, more revenue. And that then transitioned into financial services, and I got the recruiting bug there again, and then eventually here I am at HP. I was born in the United States, but moved to Brazil, where my family's from, as a very young child, grew up in Brazil, and after college moved back to California, and have been here since 1991. That was my moving date. And I'll tell you a bit, because I was asked to talk a bit about my career path, or how, what's my advice around searching for a job. And I experienced some interesting things coming from Brazil. I barely spoke English when I got here in 91, and had a difficult time assimilating to the culture. At the same time, I started dating a girl from Texas, and she had a very thick Texan accent, and not only did I speak English, the little bit I did had a nice southern drawl to it, and that was a whole nother experience that I encountered. But as I came and I started looking for the job, and I ended up getting a little job in sales and evolved, and I wanted to get into to retail and eventually transition into this company that I worked for, this optical company, but then I was tired of retail, and I wanted to go into something more, what would be perceived more as professional. And that's where I wanted to get into banking. And I started looking for a job, and this was probably around 1996, I want to say, give or take. I'm losing memory here, so give or take 96. And my full name is Elcio Robert Thomas Barcelos. I don't know why my mom did that, but that's the story. So my resume said Elcio Barcelos, and I started looking for this job, and I sent resumes out to God only knows how many employers, and many, 50-plus resumes being mailed out, and started a very, very slow process and interview. And at the time, I was living in Washington, D.C., which is a very diverse city, right? So I didn't think anything of it. And after just literally 3 to 4 months of just searching for a job with this resume, I don't know why, there was just something that clicked that said, maybe your name's just wrong, Elcio Barcelos. People probably look at the names like Elcio, Elico, what is that, right? So I decided to use a different name, and I'm not advising you to do that, by the way. So what I decided to do is abbreviate the Elcio to an E, drop the Barcelos, and make my name E. Robert Thomas. Right? It's my name. I'm not really lying. I'm just kind of customizing. Right? So I decided to send a resume to the same exact employers that I had sent it before, just to see what would happen. And out of the 50 employers that I sent them to, I got 34 phone calls, right? Okay. Lesson learned here, right? To me, and now after that, managing employment offices and recruiting practices, our recruiters don't discriminate purposely, right? They don't look at a resume and say, oh, it's Elcio, no way I'm going to call that. A Robert, absolutely. Recruiters don't do that. However, there's a tendency to look for something that's easier and simpler. And if you look at two names and you see a Robert Thomas or you see an Elcio Barcelos, chances are human nature is going to guide you to call the one that's easier to say, right? And I think that that's what happened. Funny story, right? I got the job at Bank of America, and they hired an E. Robert Thomas. And I had sent a resume, Elcio Barcelos, to them as well. And the day I was supposed to start, I had the offer letter to a Robert Thomas, and I got a decline letter, an automatic decline letter from them saying, sorry, Elcio Barcelos, we don't have an opportunity for you right now. I'm like, I got you, buddy. I'm here. So that was the story. But The lesson learned to me on that was that, you have to adapt sometimes, and you have to adjust. You have to be fluid. And again, I'm not suggesting for you to go out and change your name. You shouldn't do that. You should have pride in who you are and stand up strong for who you are. But understand that sometimes the world around you doesn't know how to adapt, right? They don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to adjust. And sometimes it's being able to be fluid and flexible and understanding the surroundings. And that's been a life lesson for me as I look for jobs, as I pursue my career, is that sometimes what you're looking for isn't necessarily in this nice little box that is perfectly done, right? Where you say, okay, here's the job, well, here's the desk, well, here's the chair, here's the monitor, go to work, this is what you do. It's not always like that. As a matter of fact, 99.9% of the time, it's not like that, right? So I'll talk a little bit about HP and explain why it's not like that. Okay, so Hewlett-Packard, Brian, you said 310,000 employees. We're doing business today in about 170 countries. This last year, my team hired approximately 80,000 people in 90 countries around the world, to give you an idea of scope. Every hour that goes by on the clock, we hire approximately 45 people. That'll give you an idea of the timing of what we do, 24 hours a day. We have about 75,000 applicants on our website every single month, right? So think about the volume. So why is that important for you to know? Because when you're applying for a job, chances are just to go through a standard website won't work. You're one of 75,000 people every month at HP, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about the how. What do you do, like if you want to get a job, like how to do that. Today, there is a perception that HP and other technology companies and other companies, period, don't hire in the U.S. And that's a misconception. We actually do hire in the U.S. We hire a lot in the U.S. About 23 to 24% of total hires today are in the United States. So we're generating easily a large number of hires, over 20,000 hires in the U.S. each year, right? But our top 5 countries in volume, India is number 1. We have a very large presence in India today. We have about 50,000 employees in India, just in Bangalore, one city in India. Then we have about another 5 to 10,000 in Chennai. And the reason why we have a very large presence in India is because India is a huge market for us. It's one of the largest growing markets for us around infrastructure. So from the server business to the PC business, we've invested a lot in human capital there for the market in India, and that's important for us. We've developed very good programs with the universities there, with the government to help build their infrastructure and provide better support for that group, similar to what we've done in the U.S. over the years as well. The U.S. is our number 2 country in volume. China, huge volume in China. China is where we do all of our manufacturing, right? China is where we do all of the production, and recently we have evolved in some contracts with government and also been able to deepen the relationship with the ever-growing market in China. Again, another segment that is really evolving much. And then Malaysia, that's always a surprise. People say, Malaysia? You're hiring in Malaysia? Yeah, we're hiring in Malaysia a lot. And finance. Yeah, HP hires finance professionals. And we have a huge financial center in Malaysia, and that takes care of most of the Asia-Pacific market around finances. And then the Philippines. That's a big market. I was just recently there, and the passion that the Philippine people have around the human experience is just overwhelming, quite honestly. Very interesting. When we think about this global footprint that we have as a company, the ever-changing business model, many of you have watched the news or followed the changes that are happening, including HP and other companies as well. We have gone through significant transformations, and in many ways, we're still going through that today. So for folks that remember HP from years prior, we weren't a computer business. In many ways, we were a printing business. And we developed other technologies in the science field, and Agilent eventually spun off. And then at some point, we acquired Compaq, and then we became this mega computer business, today the largest computer business in the world. And most recently, we just announced that we most likely will be spinning off the computer business, and which makes us go back to some of the centers of things that we've done in the past, which is really this printing business. But the other area that we're expanding into now is software. And software, not just from a standpoint of developing software from a standpoint of how do we make the human experience relevant in today's world? right? And thinking of it from a security lens. So today we're one of the largest providers of enterprise security software, right? That's a big one. But also thinking about the overall human experience. So financial services, thinking about, how many of you flew in a plane here today? Or not literally today, but flew into the area in a plane? Any of the presenters, many of you, right? No, presenters, no? No one did? Well, yeah, okay, presenters flying in. So if anyone taking an airplane today goes through a ticketing process, right? So you go online, you order a ticket, you buy the ticket online, whatever it may be, and then you use an actual ticket to get into the plane. And that ticketing system is something that HP developed and owns the patent for. So anyone traveling today uses HP technology to get on and off a plane. A lot of hospitals today use patient ID systems around the bracelet and the scanning system to make sure that the appropriate medication is given to the right patient, that you're in the right room, that you're in the right treatment, that the right surgery is taking place. That is also an area of expertise for HP. We do a lot of patient ID systems. Many hospitals today are managed, their infrastructure, their technology infrastructure is managed by our systems teams. Other areas that we're into, we just recently, probably within the last year and a half or so, we launched this new prescription verification system for third world countries. It's a mobile application, and someone dispensing AIDS medication in Western Africa today is able to, through their mobile phone, punch in a code that hits our server and verifies that it's an actual prescription that is being dispensed. And that is absolutely critical in third world countries today because of the amount of fraud that happens with prescription medication. So when a government of one of these countries invests millions of dollars to buy a batch of medication, now we can verify that that is truly the medication that's being dispensed versus some poorly manufactured medication. Carbon counting technology, we're in this quote-unquote green world today, right, where a lot of companies are trying to prove that they're green and they're trying to do a better job around their carbon footprint. And today, HP is one of the leading in the industry around carbon technology, carbon reading technology. Australia is a big client of ours. The U.S. government's a big client of ours in that space as well. And then the list goes on. So we're not that traditional printing company anymore. We're not just that laptop manufacturer. We really are this company that's trying to think holistically of the human experience in this world that we live in, and how can we make that experience relevant from a technology lens, right? That is critical. Everything from entertainment, helping Hollywood develop the most recent animation movies and digital technology for that space, as well as all the way to the healthcare field. When I started with HP, I did a trip around the world just to meet the team. I have about 900 recruiters globally, and wanted to understand what were their challenges and what they were going through and how were they acquiring talent. And I met with a group of recruiters in Plano, Texas, and I just, new to HP, I said, so tell me, what jobs are the hardest to fill? Like, what are you struggling with? And in my mind, I'm thinking, they're probably going to say, like, I don't know, an engineer, or they're thinking about a salesperson, but the guy looks at me and says, well, I'm having a really hard time hiring MDs today. I'm like, MDs? Like MD? Like a doctor? It's like, yeah, we're building out this infrastructure and we need to hire 20 doctors in Michigan. And like, it's just hard to hire a doctor because no one thinks of HP as an employer that's going to have doctors on staff. I'm like, well, yeah, me too. The head of recruiting doesn't realize that. That's a problem. So to me, that was the eye-opening experience to realize that Hewlett-Packard has transitioned beyond this technology company today and is really going into this whole new space around relevancy. The reason I say that to you is because for you as a candidate, be it for HP or for any other company, you have to think of that relevancy factor. So how do you, as a potential candidate, be it for a potential job today or tomorrow, or you're still in school, or you're still evolving, you need a few more months, whatever it may be, but how do you make yourself relevant, right? That's a big question to answer, and making sure that you're in line with what an employer's needs are. Today we hire sales and service professionals. If you think about sales and service, think hardware, think software, think emerging technologies. Today we have labs with scientists working on technology that will probably be released 3 to 5 years from now. So today, often you hear the statement that our college students today in university really are going through this process of learning, which is great, but by the time they graduate, the technology that they'll be asked to work on won't exist yet, right? So we're manufacturing that technology today, right? So think about the aspects that R&D aspect, that R&D space goes in as well. In the past, it was, how do you make this laptop thinner? How do you make this laptop lighter? How do you make this more secure? Now it's more about, how do you make it more connected? How do you make the data that is out there more relevant for someone to use? Security professionals, we often hire those in the software space. Medical professionals, as I mentioned, financial professionals, analysts, marketing professionals. Obviously biased around human resources. At HP, we have about 3,400 HR professionals, so we are often hiring HR professionals as well. One of those other aha moments, I had a recruiter in Eastern Europe that said, you know, I had this opening that just came in Romania, and it's an HR leader. And I'm like, an HR leader in Romania? Okay, well, that's new to me, right? Coming from Wells Fargo, I was like, okay, where's the stagecoach? You know, no, but it was an HR person in Romania. And that's, if you think about the scope, right? So a lot of different professions, a lot of different types of roles, a lot of different levels, right? Be it the most senior level, the PhDs that are working in this amazing technology or emerging technology today, the same way we have a lot of entry-level jobs, service positions, service desks. So it's a very broad scope of roles or positions with HP today. If you put that aside for a second, you think about the current economic environment and how this environment is forcing a certain emotion in the workplace today. There was an article that came out recently, I forget the magazine, but it talked about employee engagement. So if you're employed today, the overall level of employee engagement has decreased by a very large percentage overall, right? So now there's a lot of folks that may be unemployed that say, well, if I could only get the job, you know, I would be really engaged and I would be really happy and I would be part of the company and all is good. That's fair to say. However, it's not one company. It's literally the overall economy has created this environment now that employees become more and more skeptical about their place of work, right? Well, that has a huge implication in the workplace today because it's very difficult to drive high levels of productivity, to drive high volume in sales, to drive creativity in the workplace around product development and design if you don't have high levels of employee engagement. Right? So that's a big piece. But what's driving that level of employee engagement dropping is not the employer's atmosphere, it's just the economic environment, it's the realities, right? So you come to work every day and it's stressful and you work hard and chances are the person that worked right next to you may have lost their job because the company had to downsize a bit, and then you're on the train and you hear people talking about how tough things are, and then you go home and your spouse or your friend or your neighbor is talking to you about how difficult things are, and suddenly it becomes this big massive churn, right, of negative emotion per se, and that eventually has a toll. The reason I'm bringing that up is because we talked initially, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you become relevant, right? Well, the way you do that is to not get sucked into that cycle of negative emotion or spirit, because the fact is there's a lot to smile about, right? There's a lot to be happy about, and we need to be able to find those moments and really funnel those moments, because that's how you do differentiate yourself. When I was at Wells Fargo, we built out a call center for our internet banking. It was a call center, service center for internet banking, and our goal was to be able to build this call center in Arizona and staff it at least 30% with visually impaired candidates or employees. And we were able to do that. And today, if you bank with Wells Fargo, or you know someone that banks with Wells Fargo, and you do internet banking, you go online and you have chat with someone online, chances are you're speaking to someone that's visually impaired. Which is great. It's exciting. Well, what happened is this was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And what happened is we started building a case study, right? What's the difference in performance between the individuals that are visually impaired and the individuals that are not visually impaired? Is there a difference in engagement? Is there a difference in performance level? Is there a difference in retention, right? And what happened is we started seeing some very interesting data come through. And we were able to, with data, and remember, business people like data, sometimes way too much, but with data, we were able to prove at the time that the employees that were visually impaired in that specific unit were 3 times more likely to stay in the job longer, okay? Their performance, yeah. Their performance level was approximately 25% higher. The average score was 25% higher, okay? Now, going back to the engagement, right? The engagement score, okay? Think about the retention. If I'm happy, I stay, right? The engagement score for that group of individuals was double of that of the team that was not visually impaired. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because here's a group of people that were given an opportunity and they did a great job. So it wasn't just about feeling good about the job. No, they did an amazing job. They performed well. Customer feedback was amazing. No one knew when they're interacting with the person online, no one knew that they were visually impaired. They just interacted, you know, with like they would with anyone. But by pulling the data back, we were able to see, okay, well, here's a group of people that really did an amazing job because their engagement scores were high. They liked what they were doing it well. They were happy with the employer. They were happy with the position. Things worked well. So, but it's all a frame of mind, right? It's all a frame of mind, and that's where it starts. Don't let the current market affect you. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? So I wanted to talk about two things, and then I'll stop, because I think I've been speaking way too much already. So two things. The first one, we'll talk a little bit about what we look for in a person, and you know, when we're hiring someone at HP. What are we looking for? And we'll talk a bit about that, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time also talking about how do you go about finding a job, right? Because that piece is overwhelming sometimes. If you go to Career Builder or Monster or any other type of job board, or you apply for a job at a company's website, it's overwhelming. It's, you know, I remember 75,000 applicants a month, right? When I was at Wells Fargo, we were experiencing about 12 to 15,000 applicants a month. The volumes are crazy out there. So we have to find a way to streamline some of these pieces. So I'll tell you a bit of where we go for talent, as well as what we look for when we find a talent. So let's focus on where we go first. And then we'll stop and we'll talk a little bit about that, because I want to hear about your experiences as you're searching. And then we'll talk a bit about once you're there, what do you do, right? So what do we look for? So today, 35% of our hires at HP, give or take, come through employee referrals. Okay? Now, why is that important for you to know? Networking, that's right. And employee referrals, the way we promote employee referrals at HP is not about send me your friends and family. The way we promote is send me your network. Send me the people that you know that are hardworking. Send me the people that you know that are creative. And we pay them bonuses. If an employer refers someone to me, chances are they'll get a bonus. So there's a motivation for them to do that, right? So 35%. So it's critical that you build your network. Reach out, connect. Make those relationships work. Ask, right? Ask for someone to help you and point you in the right direction. That's absolutely critical. Employee referrals, that's literally today our number one source, okay? The number two source, okay, I'm gonna kind of lump in to digital media, okay? Now, why is that important? It's not about applying for a job at a website. It's about making yourself available and showcasing your skills, showcasing your experience, showcasing who you are, and making that public in a way, okay? Be it through a social networking site, be it through friends, be it through networks, associations, connections. The more relevant you become, the more of a target you'll be for a headhunter or a recruiter, right? So if you're a person that are passionate about certain things, blog about it. Put it out on the web, right? Just make yourself relevant, make yourself known. That's very important. Today, last year, our financial year of 2011, which now comes to end, the end of October, we'll start our new year, was the first year that at HP we invested more in digital media than we did in job boards. So we post a lot of jobs on Monster and Career Builder and all of those, but this past year was the first year that we invested more in LinkedIn, Facebook, job or website scrubs, technology that will literally crawl the web and pull names for us from the websites that are out there through associations, through meetings that you may attend. It was very interesting because initially the business leaders were somewhat skeptical about that because it was a big shift in direction, right? To say we're not going to invest this much in Monster anymore, we're going to invest this much in LinkedIn now, or we're going to invest this much in this, web crawl technology. So it's proven to be very successful, but that easily represents another, if I were to bundle it together, probably another 15 to 20% or so of our hires at HP come through digital technology, okay? So social media has never been more important, not because you want to befriend everyone on a Facebook account or because you want to stay in front of your computer and network with people all day long through the web, not because of that, but because that's the vehicle that you showcase who you are as a person, as a professional, with your skills, with your ideas, with your thoughts, with how you stand, right? All of those pieces come into play on how you showcase yourself. Then you have other sources. You have university referrals. So if you've attended university or college, be it a community college or be it a second-tier university, just align yourself with the alums, align yourself with the career counseling offices. Those are the people that can help you and make the right connections for you. Other sources, obviously through the website. So don't hesitate to apply. You should apply for a job online if you see a position, but definitely tackle these other areas as well. And then there's this small sliver, but it's very effective, and I think that it's somewhat unknown, but it's very known for people that are bold. So if you're a person that's bold, you should consider this if you're looking for a position. And that is seeking out the job you want and going for it. And just literally finding out who the hiring manager is. And maybe it's not even a position that exists yet, right? But you go for it and you literally make contact with that person. Here's an example of that. So there is, I'll keep the names and companies away from it because I know we're streaming live here, but there was an individual that was a creative professional in advertising. And he wanted to get a job and work under this other agency that's very famous and work under this one leader that's very famous. Because if he worked for this one agency and this one leader, he would be able to grow his career to where he wanted to go. And he felt constrained where he was with the agency that he was at. So what he decided to do is he went and bought a Google ad, okay, and used technology with this ad at Google to every time that this person, okay, or someone were to search for their name on the web. How many of you have looked, Elcio Barcelos on Google, right? Okay. Okay. We all do it, right? I mean, if you don't, you should try, okay? But every time this person would look at their name on Google, this ad would come up, okay? So he thought, okay, here's a guy that's a high-level executive in an advertising agency, probably a little cocky, right? Probably a little confident. Probably is going to look at their name quite often on the web. Okay, so he said, okay, every time this person goes on the web, I want a banner to pop up on their screen that says, I'm looking for a job under you. I want to work for you. I forget the exact language, but that's what happened. So literally, this guy obviously goes on the web and starts searching his name, and boom, the banner ad pops up and says, I want to work for you. My name is so-and-so. I work here now. I want to work for you. And this went on for a couple of months, and he finally reached out to him and said, okay, fine, I'll come work for me then already. And he got a job. So that's an example of someone being bold and pursuing something. We don't all have the means and the ability to go out and buy a Google ad. However, it is often that I get an email that is sent to the CEO of a company. It is often that I get an email that is sent to our head of HR that says, I'm looking for this job, these are my skills, would love our connection, okay? Chances are, if you send an email to the CEO at HP, that's gonna end up on my inbox, right? The CEO will say, Elcio, can you please just deal with this one? And what will I do? I'll get it. Because you applied for a job, in essence, you literally submitted a letter to the CEO of a company. For large companies, any Fortune 500 company, they have to have an executive communications log, okay? So that executive communications log will now log your entry, okay? In other words, don't send too many, send one or two. Okay, so they'll log your entry, they have to handle that, they have to respond to you. Well, the moment they respond to you, now you're in the machine, right? So now once I get this letter from the CEO that says, okay, Elcio, please handle this, I'll get the letter, I'll go to one of my recruiters or one of my recruiting managers, and I'll say, well, here's the person that came through the executive office. My recruiter will stop all that they're doing, they'll get the resume, right? And they'll run with it, they'll pick up the phone, call the candidate, or have someone else call them, whatever, and try to make the connection to see if there's a job. So that's one example, right? Be bold. If there's a company you want to work for, if there's a position that you're seeking, spend a little bit of time in research to find out who the employer is, who the hiring manager is, who the potential hiring manager is, and seek, and go find, go hunt, okay? So let's stop here for a second. Q&A on how are you searching for jobs today, and what's working for you, what isn't working for you, and any questions that you may have for me on this specific area.
All right, I'm gonna come around, excuse me. All right, Dean?
Hi, my name is Dean. How do I go about, I know I can use LinkedIn, But what's another way to find the hiring manager? Because sometimes you just look on a website and says apply to this job. I've done it a couple of times for a smaller company. I was able to find the CEO and it worked very effective. But like for a bigger company, how would you go about doing that? And how do you find the CEO, the hiring manager in a bigger company because there are a lot more people?
That's very true, and it becomes more complex, and that will require more research time, right? But think about it this way. If a company is public, their entire leadership team is a public record, right? So it will be somewhere on their website, it will be filed somewhere in a court somewhere. It's going to exist, and it will be on record if you can track it down. An officer of a company will be available. I completely believe in the whole concept of 6 degrees of separation, right? So you can pretty much meet anyone you want to within 6 connects, okay? And LinkedIn has become more powerful than ever in this space. So the way you would go about it, especially if you're looking for a position that doesn't exist yet, that isn't open yet, but you know the person you may want to work for, you know the company you may want to work for, you go through your network, and you can actually go on LinkedIn and do a search by company and see how many people on your network in LinkedIn are 2 or 3 degrees away from that company. Okay, so you may have a person on your network today that is probably about 4 to 5 degrees or 3 degrees away from me. Okay, what happens then? The connection takes place. You can go through that person and just send an email to them and say, "Hey, Elcio, you have, let's say you're connected directly to me. You can send me a message and say, there's a friend of yours. There's a second tier relationship that you have that works for Cisco. Would you mind making an introduction?" Right? If I'm a connection of yours and I know you, sure, I'll pick up the phone or I'll send an email to my connection that has that other connection and say, "Hey, I have a friend of mine that wants to meet this person at Cisco." And then you start the networking process. You know, a few days later, after a few email exchanges and phone calls, you've got the person. That's all it takes. It's that simple today. And I'll just plug it in now. You know, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn today.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I'm curious if you can give me any tips as to, you were mentioning earlier about the unemployment, how so many people, you know, they get a job and they hear from other people that, oh, this is so bad, and it kind of is a snowball effect, if you will, that so many people are talking about how bad the economy is, and you kind of get a little discouraged. What are some tips you can give to us as far as, you know, those of us that are sort of in limbo about we you know, in our heart we know that we're maybe not ready for employment at this point, but we want to look for a job, but at the same time you're getting mixed messages as far as people are saying, oh, you need to find a job, you shouldn't be going back to school, you've been in school too long, or you get those that you better stay in school because the unemployment is so bad.
Yeah.
So how do you go about trying to kind of flip through all that and figure out what is right for you? Everybody says go with your heart, but it's hard sometimes when you have so many people throwing so much at you, and it's hard to know what's
That's right,
the
Kim.
right way to go.
I agree with you, Kim. So here's my advice to you on that. So I used to think that the unemployment at the U.S. was bad. And when it got to 8%, I really was freaking out until I remembered that in Brazil, unemployment rate is about 35%, or in the Philippines, it's about 50%, or in China, you're at about 40%, or in Canada, you're at about 15%, right? So the fact is we actually have it quite good. It's pretty sunny outside, you know? It's tough. I'm not saying it's not that it's easy, but the fact is that there's a neighboring country out there, or a neighboring community, or a neighboring county that is potentially worse than we are today, right? So the only advice I could give you is you have to follow your heart. And I know it's easier said than done, but you have to be able to close the door and close the window and kind of shut down for a second and listen to your heart. I believe that even if you're looking for a job 6 months from now or a year from now, you need to start today, because the networking starts today. So maybe you're not ready for employment, and I would challenge that. I would challenge, what does that mean exactly? Because employment to me could be maybe 2 or 3 hours a week supporting someone with some data entry, or supporting someone with some research, or it could be working in a counselor's office in a university, helping with processing work, whatever it may be, but keeping you busy and keeping you in some sort of limelight around doing something that gives you something, right? That may not be cash, may not be a paycheck, but defining work is a very broad definition, right? So it could be literally working next door with your neighbor on a couple of things, or working on a project, or it could really be a job, right? So absolutely.
That's a good thing. Volunteering is always, that's what I'm trying to shoot for.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm glad that I have a volunteer position lined up. So I think it's just a matter of the definition of work. It's like, you know, the difference between work and volunteer, in my eyes, it's the same thing, because you're getting experience even if you're not getting paid. So you're getting something out of it. And I
That's
think
right.
That's the important thing.
That's
So-
right, and we'll talk a bit more about what we look for when looking for a candidate. And I can tell you, volunteerism and community work is absolutely critical to have on a resume. Next.
Hello, Elcio. My name is Farhang. My question is, you just mentioned about the 75,000 people applying online every month, correct?
Mhm.
Now, does that mean that people do not get employed through the 75,000 applicants? And if not, what is the backdoor way of getting into HP? Is it through you?
You don't need a back door. You can go through the front door. Farhang, what I can tell you is that to work at HP, to get a job at HP, you have to apply, right? So be it through an employee referral. So if you go through an employee referral, yeah, we keep track of that employee referral rate. Nonetheless, the first thing the recruiter will tell you is, okay, Farhang, now that I got your resume, I need you to go back and apply for a job. So the fact is, when we say we hire 80,000 people a year, those 80,000 applied for a job through our website, right, throughout the year. So that's important to know. There are back doors, and I gave you some ideas before around writing to the CEO is a good example. I mentioned you can connect with me via LinkedIn. I'm happy to do that, and my entire recruiting network is through LinkedIn. We spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars each year with LinkedIn on making sure our recruiters are well positioned and that they have the licenses needed to scrub and to go into LinkedIn and pull the right profiles. So I will, and feel free to email me, and you'll have my email address, and I'm happy to make the right connections should you be interested.
Sure. Elcio, my brother and my sister-in-law both worked in Hewlett-Packard.
Fabulous.
First in Maryland, then over here in Palo Alto and Agilent. They were both laid off. They out of work.
Yep.
Why is it that they cannot get employed? And is it possible their referral can help me?
I don't know them, right? So it's hard for me to comment if their referral would help you. I think that a couple of things.
I can vouch for them.
Yeah. Good. So then you apply. So I'll address the question, the comment around the layoffs, because I think that's something that is just in the limelight. You know, people lay off. There are a lot of layoffs that happen, especially in today's economy. The fact is, companies the size of HP will always have layoffs. At any given year, we will easily have anywhere from 5 to 20,000 layoffs throughout the world, right? Not just in the U.S., but throughout the world. It's changing the dynamics of our workforce in the sense that if we got a huge government contract with the government of Colombia, for example, and this did happen, and we go out and we build this workforce, 5 years later that contract ends, well, we don't need that whole headcount in Colombia. But now we just kind of deal with the government of Vietnam, or we're building out a huge facility in Vietnam, so now we can transfer that capacity, the resources that are invested in that one area to this other area. And because of the size of the company, that will always happen. Regarding Palo Alto, or regarding the Silicon Valley or corridor, we still employ easily over 6,000 people today in Silicon Valley as an employer. This is post the Agilent spinoff, right? So just within the current HP organization, we have that number. And there will be more layoffs. There's layoffs with the recent announcements that we made around the changes and shifts, but at the same time, we're always hiring as well. So, and regarding your family members, if they have the experience, they have the connections, if they worked for Agilent, if they worked for HP, they need to be in LinkedIn, and they should be out there networking as much as they can through other social media as well to make sure they make the connections. Regarding you, if they refer you or you go in and you just reach out to me and I'll connect you with one of our recruiters, happy to make the connections. So it always helps for someone to refer or for someone to vouch, but ultimately you have to stand on your feet. You have to own your career. Mm-hmm.
No, wait, no, we got another question over here.
Hi, my name is Jerry. My question is on internal training and internship. how much percentage of available jobs are there at like a company like HP or Wells Fargo that does internships and training inside the company?
Yeah. So a lot of, it's a broad question, right? So for an employer the size of HP, we spend millions of dollars on training each year. We have a catalog of over 15,000 courses today that one can use to develop their skill set, everything from project management to using Excel or to using Word or to presentations, executive presentations, communication skills. So huge catalog of courses that are available for employees to develop themselves. That aside, we do have internship programs and we do have university recruiting programs that we work with. So for HP, we hire approximately 15 to 16,000 college students each year. About 5% of those are through internships, and we have a great success rate of internships transitioning into employment. But that's across the world, right? In the U.S., last year, we made a commitment to the U.S. government that we would hire over 1,000 college students, and that is what we did. So we hired about 1,100 college students in the U.S. alone last year.
Hello, my name is David. The question I have, or two questions I have, I'll try to be brief. You touched on it earlier. In the Bay Area, when I think of Hewlett-Packard, I think of computers, as you say, printing, and some of the other things. What other kinds of positions are available at Hewlett-Packard? My second question is, will Hewlett-Packard remain a mainstay in Silicon Valley? Will it stay vibrant? Will it remain as a full-time employer?
I sure hope so. Okay, let me answer your first question, and then we'll talk about your second question. First question, what kinds of positions? In the Bay Area specifically, we have our software business. So a lot of software engineering, a lot of software developers. We often do small acquisitions of small software companies and development companies. That's part of our strategy in the Bay Area. Just Silicon Valley, it's an area that's always vibrant with organizations like that. So a lot of software in the Bay Area. A lot of software focused in the security space as well. Recently did an acquisition of a company called ArcSight, which is a huge leader in enterprise security space. We also have Snapfish, right? That's another printing and imaging company that we have recently purchased, not recently, a few years ago now, purchased. So that's another area that we have a lot of engineering, a lot of developers, but a lot of just service support, sales support that are there as well. And then we have the corporate functions here in Palo Alto. So human resources for the global human resources function is here. We have finance, we have legal, we have marketing, communications. What else could I tell you? A lot of engineering regarding our servers business as well. So the server business is one that's evolving significantly over the past few years. Today, the servers that we're producing are running at about 10% of the energy that our servers 3 years ago ran on, to give you an idea, and they're half the size. So it just, that's something that's ever evolving. So I would say, to summarize it, R&D and then the functions are probably the biggest opportunities. Regarding HP becoming continuing to be a relevant employer in Silicon Valley, I don't see that changing. We have a pretty big commitment with Stanford, big commitment with Silicon Valley around where our talent is. I think our headquarters will always stay in Silicon Valley. I think the recent announcements that we made regarding the direction that we're going around software and a bigger space around cloud computing and making technology and data more relevant for users is where technology is going. I think if we stay stagnant within one area of hardware, be it laptops, then we will fizzle. So, big change. Mm-hmm.
Elcio, my name is Charles Jackson. I come from a background of contingency recruiting and some agency recruiting in technology. And I was interested in your data set from your call center experience with visually impaired people. I'm curious to find out if you, first of all, work with recruiters who come from an agency background and contingency background versus more corporate internal recruiters, and if you in your own experience have worked with any visually impaired recruiters in your recruiting organization.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and yes. So we actually, In my local team today in Palo Alto, I don't have anyone that is visually impaired, but I do have quite a few recruiters that are visually impaired today throughout the globe. Brazil is an area that we do have quite a few recruiters actually that are visually impaired. Quite interesting. Regarding contingency work, working with different types of recruiters, to me, what makes a recruiter a successful individual is a person that is passionate around talent. So I find that to build the right recruiting organization, I need a mix of talent. I need recruiters that come from an agency background because that is relevant in our space. I need recruiters that come from the business side, so someone that has done the job is now going to recruit people to do what they have done in the past. That's also very important, especially in the sales field. That's key for us. And then I also love to hire green recruiters, folks that just graduated or are just now looking for a job. And if they have the sparkle and they have the passion around research and are able to dig in and deep and go out and find and just find information, right? That's put them on a few hunts. We'll see what they come up with. That's a big passion. So a very diverse type of workforce is what matters for us today. Mm-hmm.
Elsie, I know you had some other points you wanted to bring up, so I wanted to make sure you.
Yeah, so we'll switch about like what we're looking for when we're interviewing, right? And Kim mentioned before around community work and volunteerism, and when I'm looking at a resume, that is one area that I always look at, right? What is this person's or individual's commitment to their community, to their culture, to their people, to their society, to their associations, to their community? And because that, to me, tells a lot about the individual's character and their style of work, right? So that's something that's very important. I just want to point that out again that Kim mentioned. So that is important. I look for confidence in ability, right? So what does that mean? I need someone for any position, be it an R&D role, be it a sales role, we need someone that is very confident in their ability to do the job. Not overly confident, just very confident. They have to be humble and be willing to assimilate. We talked about being very clear and direct, and I will do that. It's important that someone that is visually impaired that is looking for a job understand that a lot of times what deters the employer from making the connection is just fear, right? Fear of the unknown. The same way someone that is visually impaired may have some fears around the workspace, the workplace. How do I work for this person? How do I work for this employer? The employer or the recruiter or the hiring manager on the other side may be thinking, oh wow, how do I accommodate? What technologies exist? They may not know what exists today. They may not know how you interact, how you may work if you're visually impaired, right? I remember my very first experience in having a dinner with a group of individuals that were visually impaired. And honestly, I hadn't been exposed to people that were visually impaired much. And I sat down with Carl Augusto and a few others, and we sat down, and I was curious, how are they going to read a menu? I didn't know. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to be embarrassed, right? But it was a process of learning for me, and I challenge you as you look for opportunities that you think about the person across the desk and think about how can you do your best to communicate your abilities, to communicate your skill set, and at the same time balance that out with understanding where they may be coming from, right? Because that helps. That balance is going to be critical. You have to dress and act the part, right? So I once had a person that came in for an interview, and some way, somehow, someone must have told him that they had to dress really sharp. And this was for somewhat of a blue-collar type job, and he didn't have a lot of suits, but he came in wearing his wedding suit, wearing his tuxedo. And that didn't work. That wasn't good, okay? Keep the tuxedos away. Unless you're applying for a job that you need a tuxedo. That's another story. So you have to dress the part. If you're going to work in an office and it's a professional environment, you can overdress by 5 or 10% there, right? Put a tie on maybe, even if they don't normally wear ties, right? But dress the part, play the role. Once you're in the job, this is a tip that someone gave me once you're in the job, always dress like your manager dresses. Okay, not like you dress in your role, dress like your manager should dress if you want to grow and evolve in your career. So play the part above you, right? The other piece that is a big derailer during interviews is questions. You have to come prepared. I love interviewing someone that's done research on the company, that have quotes of the CEO or have quotes of the product base that the company's exploring under, that understands the business, that did research, or is curious and has a list of questions that are ready to just fire out and ask, and meaningful questions, right? So be prepared. Don't go in without understanding what you're walking into, right? Do the research. Push out the interview. If someone says, I can only interview you tomorrow, and you don't have enough time to prepare, push it out. Push it out. Push it out 2 or 3 days, okay? Take a stand. It's important for you to take a stand.
We have
So-
a question. Do have a question back here. Here, go.
Little question here.
There you go.
Okay, hi. My name is Axel Meyer, and my question is regarding accessibility, compatibility, and those kind of issues for blind people, visually impaired, those who are dependent on screen reader software and stuff. So a lot of times I run into GUIs that are really, really awkward to customize and stuff, to adjust the screen reader to and all that kind of stuff. Are there positions that take those kind of things in consideration for certain type of software development?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say the smaller the company, the more difficult it is in many cases, or the easier it is, right? The smaller the company, they may not have the resources that they need to build out screen reading technology or build out the right workspace for you, and it's just unknown, right? For a large company like HP, we have an accessibility department. So if I'm going to bring someone on board that needs accommodations, regardless of what that may be, including myself. I need to work standing up. I can't work sitting down. So I need accommodations, right?
Question would be like software tester, so to speak. And the person that can articulate technically and has an analytical mind to really point out the crooks and pitfalls where it doesn't go. I mean, for the most part, if a sighted person runs a screen reader and then decides, okay, it works, it's just a half-assed job because this is not really the sole. I mean, nobody who's sighted turns off the monitor and then tries to run the whole show from the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always some vague reference. So, and if there's this is my question: is this really possible to have a totally screen reader dependent person really running the whole show and see what's the result, and then communicate back with the developers, the programmers and stuff, and really go and try to get the kinks out of it?
Yeah, I think it's completely possible, and it should be that way. Are there challenges in making that happen? Reality, sure. There are roadblocks, but it's a matter of making the right connections and making sure that the individual that is in charge of that area understands the need, right? And that we articulate that.
Okay, we're going to take one more question, and I'm going to give that to Sky, and then to Brian.
Yes, my name is Sky, and one question I have is, I know there's only a few of the HP products that is accessible. Are you guys looking forward to make more products accessible to visually impaired? And also, are you guys planning to hire a team of visually impaired in terms of the technology or in engineering department?
That's a great question, Sky. I think that if we don't, right, let's just say if we don't go down that road of doing a better job of developing products that are accessible regardless of disability, that are just more accessible, I think we will fail as a company. So it's, when we think about the relevancy of data, the relevancy of technology to make human life easier, more effective, we can't do that without focusing in this specific space. So is it an easy situation where, oh yeah, we're building out a team of 200 people and we're going to make this happen? No, it's not easy. It's actually quite difficult to make sure that people that are in the development space are aware of the needs, right? So that becomes a critical aspect for all of us as advocates to drive the agenda each and every time. So something as easy as Brian, picking up the phone or emailing Carl Augusto and saying, hey, this printer is not working well, we need to do this or that. Then Carl emails me and says, well, how about this? And I go out and I reach to the engineer, we start having dialogue. That's how the process works today. I dream of a world, right, that is a lot easier and simpler and people are doing the right thing from the start. But when I go out there and say that a lot of times it's not approached from a perspective of that the company doesn't want to invest or isn't willing to. It's more from a perspective the company just doesn't understand.
All right, I'm going to hand this over to Brian, and I know probably Elcio will have some closing comments.
Okay. Just our community certainly has blind folks who are engineers, high level, but not everybody has PhDs in optical character recognition or high level things that are in hot demand at HP. We have a number of people in this room, and many people of the 25,000 blind and visually impaired people just in the Bay Area who have starter jobs, who would like to know, is there childcare jobs, childcare at HP, massage, shipping and receiving, cleaning, collections, those kinds of jobs that are part of the general economy. What advice would you give somebody who knows that HP is always voted one of the best places to work in our area? How can they themselves get into the system as well?
Yeah. I'll start with the comment of being bold, again, because it doesn't matter of what job level you're seeking. Be bold and seek what you want and go after it. A company like HP, like most Fortune 100 companies, uses contractors to do a lot of the entry-level type work. So we have facilities, for example. We have a company that we outsource the entire facilities management to, right? And this company then provides services for HP as well as another 20 or so companies in Silicon Valley. So the way you would work at an HP facility, like in, for example, in maintenance, would be through one of those companies that provide these services. A lot of those companies start employment opportunities with temp workers, right? So it's going to your agency, it's going to an Adecco, it's going to a Manpower, putting yourself out there and taking a risk. And maybe it's not, going back to Kim's point, right? Maybe it's not the same situation where it's the perfect job or the great opportunity, but it's a foot in the door where you start working and you can tell everyone and show everyone how good you are and how strong you are and what you're able to contribute. So that would go for most of those entry-level jobs here in Palo Alto, right? Palo Alto is a unique place because most of the jobs that we have here are at the professional level with HP. Nonetheless, every now and then there is something that becomes available, and that's where it's imperative that if you are searching for a job and you are searching for a job with a specific employer, that you are constantly on their website. You're constantly looking, because most employers have a commitment to their community that every job that is hired is posted, right? So we are one of those. So every job, out of the 80,000 jobs that we hire every year, every job is posted for at least 7 calendar days on our website. It's a commitment. Our system is tight in a way that you can actually not close a job unless it's been posted for 7 days, right? That we've built the technology that way. So, but if a week goes by and you didn't look, you may have missed out on a great opportunity, right? So be bold, be courageous, but continue, be persistent. You have to go after and search what you want. Mm-hmm. Good?
Any closing remarks?
I think that we've touched on a lot today, and the only thing I would leave you with is that at HP, part of that HP way that you mentioned, Brian, is that you own your career, right? The concept of you owning your career is critical, because while it's important to get advice and guidance, and you've been here for a few days now listening to all sorts of tips, you're going to leave here and you're going to go back, and it could be very easy for you to just kind of fall into your day-to-day. But that's then your decision to do that, right? Or, again, being bold, you can say maybe there's 2 or 3 things that I've learned here over the last few days that I can take back and make a difference, right? And I'll make a challenge to you, right? So I'm on LinkedIn, Elcio Barcelos. You can look me up on LinkedIn. There's only one Elcio Barcelos that I know of, at HP especially. So be bold. Link up to me on LinkedIn. You'll have an automatic access to about 400, 500 professionals out there. Will it be published? Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Okay. So that way you'll have the email address and you'll have the LinkedIn piece. But that's a quick way where you can make a difference. But take action, right? I was told once that there are 3 types of people in this world. There's one person that really makes things happen. There's another person that waits for things to happen. And there's a third person that just sits around and says, wow, dude, look what happened. So, who are you?
Thank you very much, Elcio.